Hello, everyone. This is W, host of the High Art on the Edge page. Welcome to another episode of Surprise Cast. We're here to educate and entertain you for the next hour. Today, we'll be heading over to Michigan and Switzerland. Why? Because we're taking a deep dive into the pool of heavenly dream pop, indie pop sounds. The Blue Herons, Andy Jossi and Gretchen DeVault, are here to join me in a special episode. They are the masters of designing catchy as hell tunes that will lift your spirits. Did you know they just released a brand new single called Talking to Ghosts, which we'll talk about shortly. Let's welcome Andy and Gretchen. Gretchen, how are you?
Good. Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. Thank you for participating. This is our third conversation, which I'm super excited. Andy Jossi, how are you?
I'm fine, thanks.
Gretchen, can you let us know where you're tuning in from?
I am in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and I think I was here on our last go round, but just moved back to the Midwest, to the darkness. So, yes.
From Los Angeles.
From Los Angeles, from all things sun, except for the last few days, I think. Yeah.
Andy, where are you located?
From Lucerne, Switzerland.
And how's the weather in Switzerland?
Sorry?
How's the weather in Switzerland?
Shit. At the moment, very foggy. We live very close to Mount Pilatus. So there are times where the fog is really, how you say that, stocking in front of the mountain. And then it's very foggy.
Got it. Well, you're not alone in that shite weather because we just got hit hard here in the Bay Area. But we're not here to talk about the weather so much. I want to know a little bit more about you as musicians, but also people. So let's get started. Gretchen, I'm going to start with you. I was doing a little bit of homework and I looked up the origin meaning of DeVault, and this is what I came across. DeVault means ambitious, powerful, disciplined. Would you say these are accurate attributes as who you are as a person and or musician? And how so?
I mean, I do think that they are, although it's a married name, so I don't know if that counts. It's not my actual, so, but I would say that what were the attributes? Was ambitious. I think that's probably true.
Discipline.
Yes and no.
And powerful. And Andy Jossi came up with creative, romantic, idealistic. Any of those true for you?
All three, I guess. But where did you find that? I never heard about that.
How would you say any of those apply to you in either your work or as a person? Yeah, being creative or idealistic or romantic. How do any of these adjectives show up in your work or who you are as a person?
Well, I guess somehow our music is kind of romantic, even if it's also, because of the lyrics from Gretchen, like a melancholic, romantic thing. But it's never depressive or something. It's always something lift you up. But I think our music is kind of romantic.
Gretchen, let's go back in time a little bit. Let's delve into your childhood. Tell me about a childhood experience, positive or negative, that is deeply memorable and that affects you today.
Well, I have one that I could share that I think it ties into the music thing. I do remember as a little one, I don't even know how old I was, but I remember my parents, and they were divorced by the time I was 5. So this had to be right before that. But I remember them jamming with the neighbors across the street, which I thought was the coolest thing. I mean, I don't think it didn't happen often, I don't think, but I remember it just being like a really cool joyful experience. They were just, I mean, it was the 70s, so it's probably crazy. I mean, I don't know, my memories of it are very different than what it really was, but I just remember it being really cool. And the neighbors had kids too, so like as a kid, just hearing music, and I don't know. And that's probably actually true. Like that's sort of how life is even here, because that's what happens with our kids. Like we're jamming, and actually now they're jamming too. So like it's sort of interesting. But I love that. I always wanted that to be recreated too, because I just liked the feeling of it.
Did you have that experience while living in Los Angeles
Not
with
as
your?
not as much, but some of that was, there was a big chunk of COVID time in there. So, and like the first part of when we were in LA, we were in a pretty small space. Like our house was really small, so there wasn't really opportunity to jam. But I certainly did jam, and even Zane, my husband, jammed in California, just less so. It's more, I think it's it feels like it's easier here to have that happen. There's more space in the house. There's more, it's doesn't take as long to drive across town. So
There's that great quote in the movie Clueless where he says it takes 20 minutes to get anywhere in Los Angeles.
20 minutes?
That was in 1995.
Like 20 minutes is that's great. Holy smokes.
What about for you, Andy? Talk to us about a childhood experience, that very memorable, indelible experience that kind of affects you, who you are today.
Well, certainly the most defining aspect is that I was born with how does that, birth disease? Is that a word? I think so. I have no stomach closure. There's something here that the food can go down and it holds, and I didn't have that. So it go down, then starts to get liquid, and it just comes up again because it's open. So I think this is most defining for me, because that was just a part of my childhood. A lot of sickness, a lot of time in hospital. So I guess this is maybe the most defining thing.
If you don't mind me asking, how does that impact you today?
It's almost good. There's I have some problems, but I don't know the English words for it's like a technical thing. But basically, it's quite good. But they opened my stomach when I was a baby. After I was born, 2 months later, they opened me from here to here and try to repair that. It was something new that you can do that in that time. That was 1971.
Thank you for sharing that very personal thing about, I no idea. So that's fascinating. Okay, so Gretchen, where did you grow up?
I grew up in a small town in Michigan, like just kind of farm town-ish.
So talk to us about the relationship you had with your parents, siblings, relatives, and who made a big impact on your life and why.
I don't know if I have a specific who, but I will say, because I'm going to tie it back to music again. If I think of family and growing up, music is a big part of that. I had, on my dad's side, my grandpa played in bands. His mom was a pianist. And at my grandparents' house, they had a big piano, and I would just go and I would spend like all the time on that piano, just making up songs. When I was little, I loved doing that, just sitting at the piano and I wasn't trained. I did take lessons from my great grandma, but she was very much the old piano teacher. And I didn't like it. It wasn't very fun. And so I didn't take them very long, but all my cousins did. I mean, I always I would try to learn whatever songs that they were playing. I would try to learn them by watching them because I always admired how they knew all the songs, and I thought it was cool they could read music, but I couldn't. And then we had a piano at our house too, so we always had instruments around. So music was all sort of like weaved through, especially on my dad's side of the family. But then my mom also was a musician, so she plays flute. I feel like she played the tuba for a while. Like she plays guitar, she plays piano, and so she would play music too. Like I can remember being in the playroom and her just playing on the piano. Like it just so music was always sort of around, or like we'd go to weddings and my grandpa's band would play at the weddings, and which was kind of cool. So music was just sort of like a thread in really on both sides.
And that's something you incorporate into your own household today.
Yes, we like one of the things I wanted to make sure was that we had instruments that were accessible to the kids, even if they have formal training on stuff. I like that they just get to play too and try to figure it out. I think there's different ways of learning, and I don't know. I sometimes not knowing this stuff helps. Like you just learn on your own. Like I have in our little basement studio area, I have a giant poster of chords, piano chords, and my daughter is starting to like, because I was explaining if you can just know chords, you can write songs. And so she's already been trying to experiment with that, which I think is cool, just having things that are available if you so choose. So, yeah.
I love that option. It almost sounds like a great classroom experience for your children.
Yes. But better that this stuff is there than me teaching it. I'm not very good at actually teaching any of it, though. I have no patience. I'm not good at explaining it, but I'm good at creating spots where you can play with instruments. That's about
Fantastic. What about you, Andy? How about you growing up? Brothers, sisters, anybody have a big significant impact on your life?
Well, we grew up in the city of Lucerne, but a little bit suburbish, if that's a word. Very small flat. So I shared a room with my brother till I was 15, which is hard. It's a little bit pain in the ass. But we had a lovely garden. That was just amazing because the most of the time you was outside, and the forest is very close. You have to walk like 7 minutes and you are in a big forest. We were always outside. I can't remember that someone really has that big impact in me. But musically, my mother her job was selling records when she was younger. So she was working in a record store, which is a good thing. Her taste wasn't that good. That's a bad thing. So she did not really a lot of good music, but some cool stuff like the country music from the movie Big Country, which Western music, and I loved that when I was younger. Like the Searchers, Needles and Pins were, and some jazzy stuff, but not really a lot of good music. Besides the Beatles,
Gretchen, can you describe your first professional band? How have you grown as a musician since that experience? I want you to tell us about the growing pains that came along with it, but were very helpful for growth and development.
So my first professional band would have been Hansel and Gretel in college with my friend Jeremy Spanos. And it was interesting because I hadn't played in a band before. I took a voice lesson in college, or a voice class in college, and a guitar class in college, and I was terrible at guitar. Like that poor classical teacher, I swear he just passed me because he felt bad, but it was really bad. I mean, it's like just trying to change chords, and it was intimidating, but I really wanted to learn because I wanted to write songs, I think, more than anything. And so I learned, I feel like I had a dream that I could play, like I could switch chords, and then I woke up and I could. What still wasn't good, but Jeremy was one that showed me like some like showed me Jane's Addiction or just some really simple songs that I could play. And I was like, oh, okay. And then I don't remember I kind of remember being in a coffee house, and that sort of is where the band sort of happened, or like he and I decided to do a band. I don't really know, but it was like how bands happen, especially in the 90s, where I was like, let's do a band. And Jeremy's an awesome guitarist. And so never played in a band, never did anything like that. And then we played. So we were all part of a student-run radio station at Grand Valley State University, and we had this concert every year called Rites of Spring, which in fact we even had spiritualized one year. We got spiritualized. Yes, that really happened. It was crazy. Anyway, I don't remember if it might have been the year of spiritualized. I don't really remember. But that was our first show. I'd never performed in front of people. And I just went out and I did it somehow. And I still think it's crazy. I did it. It was fun. And I loved writing music. I loved working with Jeremy. And there's a bass player and a drummer. It was definitely like all growing pains with bands where you're just trying to figure out, especially when you're in college and you don't really know. I don't know. I don't honestly remember all the growing pains other than, just eventually it changes. And I think I know I left the band, but I don't really remember the details of it or anything, but it was such a cool experience. We played out a ton, just working on writing songs, working on, really creating a show. And I don't know. I learned so much, honestly, from Jeremy. Like he knew what he was doing. He had done band before too. So I think I learned the most from him, like during that time period. That was huge, really, for, the whole band thing. And then I loved it and wanted to keep doing band stuff. So, yeah.
That sounds like a very enriching experience. What about for you, Andy? Can you talk to us about your first professional band experience?
Well, I never had a band before that. I tried to play guitar when I was about 18. Then we had a band in a cellar, always played the same song, but I was not talented at all. So I stopped it and I more go in direction the beer than the band. I think it was about 13 years ago when I really started with music again. Then I just find out, wait, it's possible to do your own music, with the new technology. Everybody can learn that. And that was the first time I tried to do a song. So I didn't know that I can write music. Well, write is maybe a big word that I can play music. It's a song in the end.
And as far as growing pains, obviously you've grown as an artist, but I'd actually like to know, since 13 years ago, where do you feel like you've gained the most improvement as a musician?
Oh, that was definitely the time when I met Chrissy, because it was like a little bit more pressure. I have to do a song that works with a vocal, with a voice. So I need to make space. I need to make structures. Yeah, I think that was the moment when I improved the most. Also when I joined, Gretchen joined me with the Blue Herons, because it's just the way I work is the same, but I just have to make space and try to do more like a song than just like a 10 minutes emotional noise thing. With the Blue Herons, my wish was to play jangle pop. But before, my playing was that bad that I can't play that. I can't play arpeggios. So I have to learn that. when I met Gretchen, then it's like the perfect voice for this music. And I even try harder to learn this arpeggio thing. But it's hard for me to play these things. If you would say play a whole song, I don't know how it works, because I never go on a stage or something. I just play for myself. I never have to play a whole song. It's just like parts.
Fascinating. I love it. Gretchen, tell our listener what the Blue Herons are all about. What are their goals? What's the vision in you two collaborating together?
I mean, I think the big vision is making music that we love, that like jangle pop from our hearts, really. I don't know if there's not like a business goal to it. It's just like music. I think because it's music we love, and that's probably the goal and vision. Wouldn't you? I would also defer to Andy a bit on this, but that would be my thought.
Before we have Andy answer that, can you tell our listener, how would you define jangle pop?
I would say, catchy guitars, like layers of guitars. Yeah, sort of earworm, like mixture between dream pop and, I mean, it is sort of dream pop, but just earwormy dream pop. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Just lots of jangly, beautiful guitars.
Are there artists that you kind of aspire to or influenced this jangle pop sound?
Oh man. I mean, of course there's tons, but now I'm on the spot. Right. Andy's better at this.
Andy, let's hand you that ball, huh? So what's the vision behind the Blue Herons, and tell us a little bit more about this jangle pop genre sound?
Yeah, I think Gretchen did say it exactly how it is. It's music we have to love. That's the main thing, and that we have fun. There's no. I don't think we have ambition to be a big band. It's just the love to make music, and I'm happy we can do that together. I don't have plans with it, I would just like continue doing good music, try not to repeat myself too much, and improve the playing, improve engineering the music. That's a big thing. And about the jangle pop, I think arpeggios is a big thing for jangle pop. So to play, yes, exactly. Peter Buck, that's definitely a big thing. As for influence, the whole Sarah Records area is for sure influence. For me, especially, it's the Railway Children. As I just love, I love the sound, and I love the sound of a Rickenbacker guitar. So that's what I always wanted, but it was a hard way to go there.
Well, I think both of you are achieving that quite nicely. And so, Gretchen, did Andy find you, or did you find Andy?
No, Andy found me. I don't really know how, but I think just from all the like mutual people in the music world out there. But yeah, he reached out via Facebook. So
he reaches out to you and says what?
He says he asked if I wanted to do, like, if I'd want to do like a song. I think just a song at the time is all he had asked. And then Chrissy actually reached out as well and was like, he's legit, which I appreciated. You don't know, like, it's weird on the internets here, you don't know who's in your inbox or whatever the kids call it these days. But then he sent me some of the stuff because I had heard Churchill Garden. That's how, so I already sort of knew, because there was a song, I always forget the name because I'm really bad at names and remembering, but it was the one that was during like the beginning of COVID. And I remember listening to, because at the beginning of COVID, I would go outside, I was gardening a bunch, and I was like spending a ton of time in my backyard, and I would always listen to different radio shows, like on Mixcloud, all these different indie shows. And I just remember Church Hill Garden coming on multiple of the shows. And I just always got like a lot of peace from that song. And so I had already known about Church Hill Garden. So I did know that he was obviously legit. And then Chrissy messaged and just said what a wonderful human being he is, which is so true. And so then it was really quite an honor. So then he sent songs and it was like, holy smokes, these are amazing. So it was very easy to say yes.
Just for our listener, we're talking about Chrissy Vanderwood.
Yes.
So Andy, you reach out to Gretchen.
Yeah.
And obviously you hear this lovely, ethereal, beautiful voice that she provides. Can you tell the listener how you two work together, being so far apart from one another? What's the process of the Blue Herons?
Well, basically at the moment, I do the songs. I just record every idea I have, I record it, and I send it to Gretchen so she can listen and just decide if there is a song she like. So I don't have like something in my head where I say, can you work on that special song? Because I always think, listen, if you like something, then we can work on it. Because if you like it, I'm sure then it will be good in the end. And I just send her MP3s and she sings over it. So for me, it's very interesting to see what comes from her side, because it could turn the song like in another direction. Or like when I thought the chorus is that part and this is the verse, and maybe it changed, So that's very interesting. And I don't say to her, sing it like this melody or that. So it's all her. So far, I always loved it. So I'll never say something, don't do it like that, or I think it's just great. It feels a little bit more like playing as a band, because they're like two influence. Is that right? Coming together, and I think that's the whole magic. I just do songs. I overload it always. I know I should hold my horses, I think, but I just play so many guitars over each other because I just think, I have one more idea. When Gretchen sent me back the vocals, I have to reduce. I have to make space for her.
And you alluded to that earlier, and I really appreciate that thread right there. So, Gretchen, the song Echoes in the Dust, which was released last year, one of my favorite singles of the year. I mean, listened to it many, many times over. And then, surprise, you came about with this new song, Talking to Ghosts. Can you tell us the stages that went through and any struggles that came about with that song, with the vocals? What were you aiming for?
So interestingly, Talking to Ghosts was recorded quite a while ago. So that's like some of the magic, I think, because like well, first I want to backtrack a little bit, like because Andy sends these really cool songs that he thinks are overloaded, but I'm like they're amazing, so they don't sound overloaded. I'm like, and then he redoes a lot of the work because like he has new ideas or whatever, and it sounds brilliant really in the beginning when I get what would be maybe the demo or the ideas, but then it still sounds really cool. Like it sounds like it could just be like just the music could be released, whatever he sends from the beginning, and then but it always ends up turning out even cooler. So it's a cool process. And I do want to mention too, like I love that it's so open. Like I think that's what's kind of fun about the whole thing is like it's just like intuition, like letting the song kind of happen on its own. Like Andy said, he doesn't say, hey, this is what I'm thinking for this. It's just here's the song. And then I go into it just like and let whatever come out. But that the newest single was one from actually pretty early on. I think it's one of our early ones. So it's interesting, like from the vocals perspective, I feel like I've improved stuff, but that one still sounds really great. Like I love it. So it's fun actually to go back because I think sometimes the songs come back when they're supposed to. Because that one, I'd almost forgotten about it. Was like, oh yeah, we have that song when Andy started reworking on it, and it's like it's just meant to happen now or whatever. So there wasn't that one was probably an easy early one that just happened super organically. But then it takes time, and then it like there's new magic that gets added to it, like. Because I think even production wise, like Andy's like learned tons too and has new things he does. And I mean, it sounded good in the beginning, but it sounds pretty awesome now too. So
what you're alluding to is he sprinkled the Jossi magic
yes.
that he often does.
You're gonna have to copyright that, trademark that term.
So what I'd love to do right now for our listeners is to take a good listen to Talking to Ghosts for a little bit. And then Andy, I'm gonna have a question for you. Oh, what a great, terrific indie pop, jangle pop song. So, Andy, Gretchen alluded to earlier that song had been finished a while ago. Tell me, what do you feel worked well with this song? What did you really try to chase after?
Well, in the beginning, as she told us before, it's an older song. And my recording and my arpeggios wasn't good that time. So the timing was not good. Also, how I used too much reverb. I even still use too much reverb for jangle pop, but but I just try to improve that. So I really did a lot of re-recording. Maybe that was the hardest part, to find out what did I play. I'll have to listen carefully. I think that was the hardest part of it. Just make it more jangly, more clear, even more poppy. So I think on the most song we work at the moment, I try to reduce a little bit the dream pop thing and just let it come out in the end of the song. I like big endings. I like to make it a little bit bigger in the end. So I think that was the challenge of the song, to re-record everything and find out what I play in the beginning, because it is really that was an old idea.
Gretchen, what do you love about working with Andy? What does he bring out in you?
Lots of things. Like it's super cool because like the music is absolutely beautiful. So it feels pretty easy to work on these songs because they're so cool. Like even when he's talking about that song being like that it was somehow a mess or whatever, the timing was off. I never heard any of that. It sounded really lovely. even the stuff that he says is like a mess is never It's never a mess. It's really good. And so like it's really cool to get to work on songs like this that just in such a free flowing way too, to just like make it whatever it's supposed to be. But yeah, I mean, Andy is a brilliant guitarist. He's really good also at like the arrangement of songs, things I wouldn't think of at all. It's really cool. Like lots of spaces and lots of builds, and so it's really cool. So all the things really.
Andy, I'm going to serve that same question to you. What do you love about working with Gretchen?
Oh, I just have to I don't have to care, because I know in the end I will love it. And also, she never say, could you change something? Or we're really like two, I don't know the word, like we are a band, but we don't see us very often. Even we don't chat very often. We send our songs and everybody work on his part. And in the end, we're happy to have a sound. So it's very easy. It's really just, oh, lovely. In the end, we have a song. I don't have to care. Can you do that? Or can you need this? It's just, obviously, it sounds so lovely. I think it fits perfect to the music.
Looking at your album covers, we've talked about this before, your phenomenal vision for these album covers. How does that work? Do you hear Gretchen's voice, hear the lyrics, and then create, or do you create the image first? Walk us through that process, Andy.
Mostly I create them in the end before we release them. And I always try to fit a little bit to the music, to the vocals. Sometimes it's, I think the word is literally, so that there's a word and I try to make a picture with that. Like talking to ghosts, I was thinking, what should I do with talking to ghosts? And I just had this idea of a woman basically talk to a ghost. But I think that most people don't see it when you watch the cover and you see the girl from behind, and there's a window, and in the window you see a hand. So mostly in the songs there are small details where you can find. It's like I just found out. I think it's funny if there is always a cat on the cover, like the newer ones. If you have a close look on Talking to Ghosts, you will see there's a cat too. She's under the stairs. So it's things like that I really like. And I remember in the beginning I had a little bit problem to do covers for the Blue Herons. I thought it's more easy with the Churchill Garden because it's the dreamy, floaty, colorful sound. You just can do effects. With the Blue Herons, it's maybe a little bit more connected to the lyrics. It's a bit different. And I also stay with one font. So with the Churchill Garden, I always change the fonts. And the Blue Herons, I always use the same font.
Gretchen, you and I our eyes are getting big. We just know the creativity that flows out of Andy. Did you know about this cat?
I did know about the cat because he pointed it out. So, and I do love that. So, yeah, the album art is always beautiful. Always beautiful.
Okay, so this is a question, Gretchen, that bands, artists are grappling with every day. And that is, how do you stay connected to your fans? So I want to know from you, how do you stay connected to the people that appreciate your music? And how do you know if you're really connecting to them?
Isn't that the $1 million question? I mean, I feel like social media is probably the easiest, but also most difficult way. And I could go on and on about the issues with, say, Facebook and the algorithms and all that stuff. So it's hard because you don't own any of that. So you can't connect in the way that I think would be a space that seems like a good place to connect, but it's hard because, you know, you want to, like, I want to appreciate that people listen to the music and be able to thank people for listening to the music, and thank people for playing the music too, because like it's a really like huge honor. Every like radio show, every podcast that plays it is like a big honor, and like sometimes it's hard to even see some of those come through, like you don't get the notifications or whatever. But I mean, I just am always grateful and want to thank people for like listening. That's a really big deal. So, but I don't know how, like, I don't know. I guess I try to connect with people the way I connect with people in real life too, just to get to know people. And
Do you find it easier to connect with your audience via Instagram versus Facebook?
that's a tough one, because I feel like a real Gen Xer Instagram, where sometimes I don't understand it. I still don't get how to do some of the things, and I'm like, oh God. So I think it. So I don't. A real boomer, I guess. I don't know if there's I think it's probably just more the interpersonal connection matters more than what the medium is. So wherever you can make as authentic of a connection as possible is probably the answer to that. But I don't know if I have like one that I think does better. It's just different. And Mark Zuckerberg does not want you to connect with anyone else unless you pay. Thanks, Mark.
Good old social network. Andy, how do you stay connected to your audience? What do you do? Do you do it through Messenger? Do you do it through emails? What works for you?
Well, it's Facebook and Instagram, that's for sure. But I think we have very modest, I think it's the word. It's not really a lot of people listen to the Blue Herons. If we look at like followers or listeners that pay or plays on Spotify, it's not really a lot. But I just noticed that I think more people knows us than I think. Because then sometimes there's someone written a message and said, "Oh, it's so good," and I never heard the name, because usually I think I know the most names who listen to our music. But yeah, it's Facebook and Instagram. I tried to be a little bit more active on Instagram recently. I don't know if you saw, I record myself to play something, which was a big deal for me to do that. But I just noticed, that it makes an impact. People really watched it. If they like it, maybe they follow us. But as we say in the beginning, the most important thing is we both love it, like to make music. If there are 1,000 or if there are 500, I think we don't care that much.
You mentioned that you may not have a lot of followers. We can argue what a lot is, but the followers that you two do have for your work is very impassioned. They gravitate towards your work and they admire it and they respect it. And to me, if I were an artist, which I'm not, if I were, that would be all of why I'd be doing this. But
it's very heartwarming. It is, definitely. Yeah.
We're going to wrap up this conversation with some lighthearted talk about albums that you would recommend to our listener. And this is where the guests get a chance to share albums that have had impact on their life, or it could be a brand new record they just bought at a record store or online, anything they want to offer up. Fair game. So Gretchen, we're going to start with you. Could you please talk about 2 to 3 albums that have had an impact on your life? Go for it.
Yeah. So I'm just going to throw out a couple of, because it's hard to it is hard to come up with like the ones that there's so many. But I want to mention like one that what happens, I feel like every few years is like, for me, music goes in these weird cycles or shifts or whatever. And then there'll be an artist that'll come out or that I'll get connected to that like inspires making more music again. I don't know. That's the best way to describe that. And so I think that Always is a big one for that. I mean, it's been a bit, but sometimes I just get re-energized. And I think when I heard them, I was re-energized again because there was like a pause. I feel like the music slowed down and then it was like just exciting again. And actually Jossi is another artist like that like, especially in my early LA days when we moved out there, that Jossi was one that I couldn't get enough of. I don't know if you're familiar. Really, really good. And that was inspiring too, because she was recording in Logic. And so that inspired me more to like be more okay with some like producing of my own, like, as opposed to like always being in the studio, because that's like the old school part of me. You go into the studio. But the JSON, that was all of that garage recording stuff. And then, I was thinking of an album that just never gets old for me. And that is Slow Dive's Souvlaki. Like, never, ever, ever get sick of it. It's just one that I always return to, and probably any Mojave 3 too. So I hope that answers.
It does. And I just need to know, are you more of a vinyl or CD person?
Well, now that I have my record player working again, that's been going on for years. So the record player, it was like the record player didn't work right. And this is my husband's record player. And so he didn't want to replace it because it's a really good record player. So then we moved to LA, we brought it with us, and then we didn't have our speakers. And then he finally, right before we left, he finally got it fixed. And then we moved back and it took us 6 months to get it all set up. So now we have the record player working, the CD player, and the tape player. And we are able to hook up the phone to the whole system as well. So it's the first time in, I don't know, 10 years since it's been all working. So I don't know, maybe I might be more vinyl again now that we have a working record player, but it was hard to be vinyl before that.
I remember when you posted that image, and I think I said in a smart alecky way, "When's the party?"
I know. Anytime.
That is fantastic. Okay, Andy, we move on to you. 2 to 3 albums that have had an impact on your life or you're currently listening to.
Yeah. Well, first, I saw Slow Dive last Wednesday. So it was nice. Close Lobsters. How do you pronounce? Is it headache? Oh, wait, here. Because I don't know how to pronounce that. Headache. Okay. Headache Rhetoric. Was from 1989. And I just love this band. They were part of this NME C86 tapes. So really great guitar sound. And also a band where I thought a singer don't need to have a good technique to sing, because that's definitely not a good singer, but it's just perfect on the record. I really love it. Another band is the Caretaker Race. It's not very a known band. That's Hangover Square. It's from 1990. It's produced by Stephen Street. He was working with the Smiths, obviously. And here is Andy Strickland, who also plays with The Loft. Very beautiful guitar pop. And they play in our hometown. Some friends of mine organized a concert with them. So I saw them there, and there was a special thing because there's a girl who played bass that time. The boyfriend of her was also with the band, and that was Moose. How to pronounce? I think it's Moose from New Model Army that time. So great, lovely band. Wall of Voodoo. So quite old. So 1982. That was one of the first bands I had a friend, and he had an older brother. He has a little record collection. And when he goes out of the house, we were 12 or 13, and we go in his room and start to listen his records. And there was like The Cure and UK Subs, Associate, Eyeless in Gaza. So very old stuff. And Wall of Voodoo. And obviously it was Mexican radio that was that time the favorite track. Now there are other tracks like Last Weekend that I really love on this record. So very old, very good. Later, Stand Which Way was famous with Camouflage, so he has a big hit. So lovely stuff.
On that Close Lobsters record, if you want the quintessential jingle jangle pop song, track number 9, Skyscrapers. It is, I mean, it's what we've been talking about. It is phenomenal. It could send shivers down your spine. They really did an impressive job kind of owning that craft. Both of you shared some wonderful albums and bands, so thank you so much. All right, we have a few minutes here. Gretchen, what speaks to your heart that most people wouldn't know about for whatever reason? For example, maybe you support an organization that helps run programs for troubled youth in a city. Other than music, what speaks to your heart? What's important to you?
I don't have an organization or anything, but I just would like people to be nice to each other.
Kindness.
Kindness is probably the thing. Yeah.
Andy, what about you?
Well, it's definitely the same thing. If we talk about like communication with other people, if it's about what speaks to my heart as a person when I'm alone, it's being in the mountains alone and just walk around just by my own, and I just love that.
Yes, I remember you sharing some pictures of your travels and some of those breathtaking views. Okay, so what's next for both of you? It could be the Blue Herons, other side projects. What's coming down the line? Gretchen, we'll start with you.
Well, we are working on some more music. We've got a couple songs in the works, and then I will let Andy announce the exciting piece, but we are definitely making music. That's the big thing.
Andy, what is the big news that's about to drop?
Well, we can record a CD. So there will be a small run of CDs, I think it's the word. And we can do that on the Subjengle label. And that's very excited. I think we both are very thankful someone is doing that for us, because it is work, definitely. When you have to do it all by your own, it is really a lot of work. Of course, I would love to do a vinyl copy, but it's so expensive, and I'm just thankful we have the opportunity and can do that. So we definitely will work on one more song for the record, and then we make a collection, as I did with the Churchill Garden. I'll have to rework on some older tracks, and then we do a CD. It's exciting.
When might we see the light of day of this?
Oh, I don't know. I think now we go fast forward, because it took me a while to find a good balance for the last song. It's also an older recording, so I have to re-record the whole stuff, and it wasn't that easy. But now I think I am on a good way, and when I start with the good way, then I'm sure I will be quite fast to go forward and finish that. So actually, I already work on the cover art for the CD because I have the opportunity to do the cover art for the CD, which is very lovely.
And then you punctuate it with a Blue Herons tour. I see it already. This is fantastic news. Keep us posted abreast on the progression of this. And yeah, I'm super excited for the two of you. Gretchen, DeVault, Andy Jossi, also known as the Blue Herons. This has been another fabulous conversation with you. And I want to say thank you for your time and your efforts to help get this podcast off the ground and running. I very much appreciative. And Gretchen, I want to go back to what you said just a few minutes ago. All the music that both of you two create, engineer, and produce and share with the world, all the jingle jangle, all the pop, it's all wonderful. It's all great. But underneath all this, it's the kindness that I see in both of you, which is why I'm great admirers of who you are as people. So keep putting the kindness out in the world, and it continues to pay off. So thank you both.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
You're quite welcome. Thank you for tuning in. My name is W, also known as William. You're listening to Surprisecast with the Blue Herons. Take care, everyone. Keep listening to jingle jangle pop music. It's good for the soul. Ciao.